Hello and welcome back, and that's right, today is the July update of the Storaxa Kickstarter NAS. And before we go any further, a very quick disclaimer off the bat. You know that I've been trying to do a monthly update on this system in conjunction with the Kickstarter to cover all of the updates for those in and outside of it as a kind of testament towards whether a Kickstarter NAS like this can be a success. And although I do update it regularly and try to do a video every single month, one problem I'm finding right now is timing these videos with the updates. Case and point, although you can see there on screen a lot of the information that we're going to be covering today. Today is the 31st of July in the UK. It's just after lunchtime, and unfortunately there is still an update on the schedule according to Storaxa for today, and I've been holding out on this video right until that update could come out, and unfortunately it's not arrived for the time of this recording. Consequently, what you're probably going to find is either at the end of this video, if it arrives before I produce and publish this video, I will tap it on to the end of it, or this update on the 31st of July, if it is significant enough, I will make an updated version of this video coming out in the next 24 to 48 hours, just as an addendum to this one. So either it's going to be added to the end, or you'll see it in the next couple of days if it is a significant update. But without further ado, let's crack on with everything we learned in July. We're really covering 4 things in this video. They should be chapterized at the bottom. But the first thing I want to talk about is Storaxa's weird silence for about 2.5 weeks. Now, before we go any further, you know, this isn't kind of scapegoating or witch hunting, although there has been comments put on their Storaxa Reddit, which, frankly, if you do read it, does have a tendency to get a little toxic in places. You know, you read it and you'll see what I mean. There was definitely a period of about 2 to 3 weeks where Storaxa was pretty silent. Now, although we could go into the comments now to review that, I've got some of the comments here with just people kind of wondering where they'd gone. Now, again, there will be users out there that have followed Kickstarter campaigns in the past, and they know that, one, they want people to concentrate on the goods that are being developed. What they want is a full-baked product and less on the talky. And the second thing, of course, is, so, you know, Storaxa and the way they've been responding to users in individual comments, we have to be honest, has been very on the nose. But it is because of that this silence for 2.5 weeks was so poignant, because they've been so hot on replying to people within 2 to 3 days for the entirety of this campaign that a sudden silence in itself became something a lot of people, myself included, were kind of perplexed by. And as you can see from those comments on screen, people were wondering. However, I can confirm that around about mid-month, they did reply, apologising to users for not really responding and backdating and going through the previous comments historically and answering a lot of those questions, my own included. So again, although there was a large period of silence that frankly did cause a lot of people to get a little bit unnervy about a sudden silence from them, it has to be said that they have since started responding once again, returning to the same regularity of those updates and answering comments. And overall, I think a lot of faith has been restored in this project that may have been lost during that time. Next up, a quick dotting the I and crossing the T from the previous update video there, and this is to do with the development of the AMD mainboard there, the 5825, and again they did highlight mid-June that they were having difficulties with that board, and they stated that they were having inconsistent connections, and indeed no connections in some cases, with the main M2 NVMe slots. Now that was in the June 19th update, highlighted down. We did cover that in the previous video, and I'm pleased to say that they did in their end of month update at the end of June, did highlight that issue had been resolved, and that particular ASM chip is now functioning there. So again, although we're still not seeing a full breakdown in terms of, the AMD utilizers, the kind of higher end Intel ones, and of course the entry level devices as well, I will say that that was kind of a breaking point there for them in terms of highlighting the functionality of some of the components they've been receiving. We've really got to talk about a particular other component that's kind of dominated a lot of the conversation on Storaxa's own comment section and update sections over the last 3 to 4 weeks. Of course, I'm talking about the SD cards that formed part of a stretch goal that was part of the original Kickstarter campaign, alongside a 2.5 USB adapter that we've not heard too much about since. We're focusing pretty much here on the SD card. The SD card that was offered to every single backer upon the completion of the original campaign there, as it crossed over all of its goals. Now, this SD card originally that was going to arrive with recovery media and a recovery image of your Storaxa, which they've changed position on because they're saying there's too many configurations. The SD card is now being utilised as a means to test the courier company and their by their own sharing there a very interesting and affordable quote provided to them by a logistics company in order to distribute Storaxa at the final, fulfillment of the campaign to buyers out there. And they're going to provide the original media images via download links to different configurations later down the line when the systems do get distributed there. Now, the SD cards were shipped out to a lot of users, and I think it would be fair to say that the distribution has been mixed. There's lots of things to touch on, but first and foremost we'll talk about a delay that came very early doors with the SD cards, with Storaxa stating on one of their updates here that a lot of the SD cards they'd received, I say a lot, they did say some, I'll correct myself there, some of the SD cards were fake with the kind of non-real storage values inside that had very variable internal storage values upon their testing, and they were saying how they're taking quality control very, very seriously, and therefore they had to seek out another supplier for these SD cards, which therefore kind of staggered things and delayed distribution of those SD cards there. The other thing that became very, very clear during the distribution of these SD cards is that the SD cards have certainly been phased and delivered region by region or continent by continent, with the majority of the first wave of SD cards clearly going towards US buyers, presumably because they have a larger percentage overall. But when it came to UK, when it came to Europe, when it came to other areas of the East, for some reason there does look like there have been delays, or at least later shipping down the line for those users. For example, myself, I've not received an SD card yet, and as you can see at the moment it has made it to the UK. It reached Hong Kong distribution at 9:24 on the 26th of July, so not too long ago. But given these cards were first discussed about distribution by Storaxa, and if we utilise this date here being the 30th of June, I've still got a slow delivery there on those SD cards if they were shipped out then. So it's clearly indicating, and they themselves did highlight, that it was going to be country by country. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, and I'm sure it was already raised in the comments, why the big fuss over SD cards? It's just an SD card. I'm more interested in the Storaxa itself actually coming to fruition, and that's true. But don't lose sight of the fact that this was designed as a logistics test, a test of the shipping company, distribution of those tracking numbers, which I think most users didn't get from the pledge box. They didn't get it from Storaxa, they got it from the couriers when it reached the end goal area of that distribution and logistics chain there. The other thing, clearly there wasn't going to be any insurance on these SD cards due to their low value. So as a test of the courier company, I hope we see a little bit more statistical evidence of how this was of benefit to the larger campaign, aside from verifying people's addresses, because an SD card is very different to hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of equipment overall. But a lot of the users that did receive their SD cards, and again, predominantly US-based users, and they've got one user here, and again, special thanks to him. I will link to this in the description and in the article over on NAS Compares. They actually shared a lot of images of what we got, and what I thought was really intriguing is this, I'm not going to say this SD card is particularly mind-boggling. It's a 32 gig SD. They're very cheap. But what I did like is at least it's branded there, which is a small thing, and you can arrange that online. Any AliExpress store, there's lots out there that will just put your custom business logo on a bulk batch of SDs. But still, nonetheless, it's a nice extra step they took there. And again, it's inside. It's got a little message with regards to that update there. So it's a nice extra step. It has to be said presentation-wise. I quite like that. And again, if we look at the number of people that actually said received, we can see loads of people had received these cards overall, and you can cycle through those updates. There's plenty of people that have confirmed that they have received it. Indeed, short of a few hiccups, such as a user here saying they received 2 empty envelopes, another user that bought more than one Storaxa inquiring about multiple SD cards, and one user whose local courier effectively mashed up their delivery there. And again, Storaxa did contact them in the comments and say they'd send out another one. It's been pretty smooth by the looks of things, but again, how representative this is of the completed distribution of the system is still yet to be seen. Which brings us to update 23 on the 16th of July. And this is one where they were showing off that completed AMD board that we discussed earlier in the video. Again, that case on the side, I believe that is the original one that was being shown off in the initial Kickstarter campaign there. So I'm not going to give them too much flack for that. But I will say that we're still waiting on seeing the actual case. Now, again, to give them the benefit of the doubt, I do highlight in that most recent comment, they were saying that they were holding out for the completion of a completed, upgraded board that had passed all of the tests. The reason being, they state that they're still trying to aim for one case to service all of the different controller boards, from the very low spec Pentium all the way up to some of the Intel i12 high level core systems in the AMDs there. So they were saying that at that update on the 31st of July they will be showing off the completed case there, and they were stating that. And again, that's why we're holding out for that update on the 31st, which again we're still holding out for. And if you've looked at the time bar and there's like 1 minute left on this video, then you know that I've had to publish this before that has rolled out, and you'll see an update if it is significant. The last thing to touch on is this is the first time they've openly put their hands up and said it ain't arriving in July, which we'd like to assume we knew by now, given that it's the end of July. But in that mid-July update there, they did highlight that things have moved forward because of delays, because of the controller boards that they'd received through, those SD cards being faked out there, and ultimately they have adjusted their timeline and are now targeting the second half of September. I still think it's optimistic. It's not as optimistic as what we saw previously when they were looking at June, July, but it's still pretty optimistic, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the first generation of devices that roll out will be facilitating. Will we be seeing the rollout of the entry-level boxes first, or are we going to be seeing the higher powered boxes roll out first? And also, will we see those regional deliveries affected in the same way? Ultimately, if you are someone that's not in the US, is this targeted regional approach going to have any impact, good or bad, on users when the final fulfillment comes out, based on where they are in the world and depending on which unit they go for there? But again, we still don't know quite enough at this time. But at least they went to the trouble of confirming there that it is delayed, which a lot of us have suspected and highlighted in the comments. But at least there we are on the updated timeline. But there you go, that is the Storaxa July update of this particular NAS and its development. Again, if this is going to be a significant update coming out later today, again, we don't know which time zone it's rolling out on. I will make an updated version of this video, which should come out in the next 24 to 48 hours, detailing some of these extras that have been highlighted. But if you don't see that in the next day or so, it means that update wasn't hugely significant, and I'll roll it into the August update video. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Again, head over to the Storaxa article here if you don't want to wait for the next video, where we update it as much as we can, normally around about 3 to 4 times a month at the moment, and it will highlight everything that we know all the time on this. Other than that, you can head over to the Reddit there, which again, pick and choose your threads there, but it's still an informative resource there overall for you to check out. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next update.